The slave market was quiet that morning. The sky above was gray and cold winds moved through the cracked stone streets. But the silence didn't mean peace. It meant fear. It meant waiting. In the middle of the market, under a torn cloth tent, sat a small alien girl. Her hands were chained. Her clothes were thin and dirty. Her skin was pale blue, and her eyes looked empty. She did not cry. She had no more tears left. People walked by her. Some looked at her and kept walking. Others laughed. One trader whispered, "She's been returned 3 times already. Broken thing, worthless." The girl didn't move. She had learned long ago that hope was dangerous. She just stared at the ground. A large man with metal arms barked at buyers. "Strong ones over here! Fighters, good for labor!" Beside him were aliens with muscles and scars. But no one stopped at the corner where she sat. Then he came. A human man. Tall, quiet, wearing a dusty coat. His boots were old but clean. He walked slowly through the market, not rushing, just watching. The traders called to him. "You want strong ones, human? Come look. Or soft ones, pretty ones." He said nothing. He walked past them all, and then he saw her. She didn't notice him at first. Her head was down, her mind far away. But something made her look up. Her tired eyes met his. For a second, no one spoke. The wind blew dust around them. Then the trader saw where the human was looking and laughed. "Ha, that one. She's trash, not even worth a drink of water. She was sold and returned. Weak. Useless." The human didn't respond. He stepped closer. "What's your price for her?" he asked, calm. The trader scratched his beard and joked. "For her? You serious? 1 coin, and even that's too much." The human reached into his coat pocket. He pulled out 1 silver coin and held it out. The trader blinked. "Wait, really? You want her?" "Yes," the man said. "She doesn't work. She doesn't even speak." The man didn't explain. He just placed the coin in the trader's hand. The chain was unhooked. The girl stood slowly, her legs shaking. She thought she was going to a new master. Another house. Another nightmare. Her heart beat fast with fear. The human looked down at her. "Can you walk?" he asked gently. She nodded, but only just. He didn't grab her. He didn't pull the chain. He simply turned and walked. She followed. Her legs were weak, but she walked. People stared as they left the market. Some laughed. Others whispered, "Poor human. Got himself a broken thing. She won't last a week." But the man didn't care. They walked past buildings, through alleys, and finally came to a small home at the edge of the city. The house was simple. Stone walls, wooden door, and a small fire burning inside. He opened the door. "Come in," he said. She hesitated. This was always the moment, when kindness turned into cruelty. She waited for the slap, the yell, the chain, but none came. He walked to the fire and placed a blanket on the floor. "Sit here. Warm yourself." She didn't move. He looked at her. "You're safe now." Her lips parted, but no words came. She sat slowly, her arms still tight around herself. He walked to the kitchen and poured water into a cup. He brought it to her and placed it down. "Drink." She picked up the cup with shaking hands. The water was clean. It touched her tongue, and she gasped softly. It had been so long. He sat across from her. "My name is Daniel." She didn't reply. "You don't have to talk," he said. "Just rest." She looked at him closely for the first time. His eyes were tired but kind. His voice was soft. His hands, though rough, didn't move with anger. "Why?" she whispered, her voice hoarse. "Why did you buy me?" He looked into the fire. Because no one else did. That night she slept on a soft mat near the warm fire. She didn't cry. She didn't dream. She simply rested, and for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid. The next morning the girl woke with a start. She was warm, The fire still burned. A soft blanket was over her. For a moment she forgot where she was. Then she remembered. The silent market, the one-coin sale, the human man. Her body tensed. She looked around. Where was he? Was this the moment he'd show his true side? But he wasn't near her. He was outside, chopping wood. She slowly sat up. Her wrists hurt where the chains had once been. Her feet were bare, but the floor under her was clean. She saw bread and a cup of warm broth placed beside her. She looked at it for a long time. In her life, food always came with a price. "Eat," said a calm voice behind her. It was the human, Daniel. She flinched, but he didn't move closer. "I won't touch you," he said. "You are not a thing." Her lips trembled. "Why did you really buy me?" Daniel sat on the other side of the room and rubbed his tired hands. "You were sitting there, like someone already dead. But I saw something in your eyes. You were still alive." She looked away. "Barely." He gave a small nod. "Barely is enough." She picked up the bread slowly, waiting for him to snatch it or laugh, but he didn't move. She took a bite, soft, real bread, then sipped the broth. Her eyes filled with tears, not from pain, but from warmth. She didn't know how to handle that. Later, Daniel took her outside. His house was on the edge of the town, near old ruins and wild fields. No neighbors, just space, silence, and cold air. "I come here to get away from people," he said. "But maybe you need that too." She followed him in silence. He gave her an old coat and gloves. They were too big, but they were warm. He pointed to the garden. "Nothing grows now, it's winter. But in spring, you'll see colors you've never imagined." She didn't answer. She just stared at the frozen soil. After a while, she asked, "What do I have to do to stay?" Daniel looked confused. "Nothing." "No work? No bed service?" she asked in a whisper. He shook his head. "You're not a slave anymore." Her knees almost gave out. Inside again, she watched him make soup. He didn't order her. He didn't raise his voice. He treated her like a person. She sat in the corner, watching. Then suddenly she asked, "What's wrong with me?" Daniel stopped stirring. "What do you mean?" "They said I was broken, used, worthless. I wasn't pretty enough, not strong enough." He turned to her. "You are not the words they used." "They returned me 3 times, she whispered. "They never saw you," he said softly. "They only saw what they wanted, but I saw who you were." She hugged her knees. Daniel moved to a small wooden shelf and picked up a cracked photo. He handed it to her. It showed a younger version of him. And a smiling alien woman. She was my wife. Not human, beautiful, wild, stubborn, and brave. She died in the war. People hated us for being together. The girl looked at the picture, then at him. "You know what it feels like?" "Yes," he said. "To lose, to be alone, to be judged for something you never chose." That night she didn't sleep on the floor. Daniel had set up a small cot beside the fire. Soft pillow. Clean blanket. She sat down slowly. Her hands shook as she whispered, "Thank you." He gave her a calm nod. "You don't have to thank me. Just heal." As he walked to the back room, she asked, "Do I have a name?" He paused. She looked down. "I had one once, but they took it. They called me it, slave, or worse." He walked back to her and knelt down. "You choose a name, one that belongs only to you." She blinked. "Really?" "Yes." She thought for a moment, then whispered, "Mira." He smiled. "Then welcome home, Mira." For the first time, that name felt like hope. Mira stayed silent for days. She followed Daniel around the house like a ghost, quiet, watching, waiting. She didn't touch anything unless told. She didn't speak unless spoken to. She never turned her back on him, always keeping one eye on him, just in case, because kindness was always followed by pain. That was how it worked in her old world. So when Daniel placed a bowl of warm food in front of her, she looked at it suspiciously. "Poison?" she asked softly. "No," he said, surprised. "A test?" "No." "Then why?" Her voice trembled. "Why are you kind to me?" He sat on the floor across from her. "Because you've had too much cruelty already." That answer made her more scared than angry words would have. The next day, Daniel was fixing the roof. The wind had torn part of it off last night. Mira watched from the window. She wanted to help, but didn't dare. In her past, trying to help meant punishment. She had been hit for speaking, kicked for walking in the wrong direction, slapped for looking wrong. But something inside her shifted. Slowly, carefully, she stepped outside. Daniel didn't notice her at first. She picked up a fallen board and walked toward him. Her hands shook as she held it out. He turned. "You don't have to." "I want to," she said, then paused. And I'm scared." He took the board gently. "Then we'll go slow. Together." That word, together, was new to her. That evening, she sat by the fire, still holding a small hammer. She hadn't used it right, but Daniel never yelled. He just smiled and showed her again. "You're not afraid of me?" he had asked once. "I am," she had whispered. But less than before. That night she had a nightmare. She screamed. Daniel rushed into the room but stopped at the door when he saw her curled up in the corner, crying. He didn't step closer. Didn't touch her. Instead, he sat on the floor, far enough not to scare her. "Do you want to talk about it?" he asked gently. She shook her head. So he didn't ask again. But he stayed there, silent, present, until she finally whispered, "They used to chain me to the bed, for days, just for asking questions." Daniel's jaw clenched, but he didn't interrupt. "I stopped asking. I stopped speaking. I stopped dreaming." Her voice cracked. "Now you give me food, warmth, a bed. Why?" He looked into her eyes. "Because you deserve it." She buried her face in her hands. No one had ever said that to her. The next morning, she opened her eyes to something strange. Laughter. Her own. Daniel had told her a joke while handing her breakfast. She hadn't meant to laugh, but it escaped, and when it did, she felt light. Later that day, Daniel took her to the nearby forest. There, trees stood tall and proud, and snow still clung to the branches. He showed her how to track animal prints, how to spot safe plants, how to feel the breeze and tell if a storm was coming. She touched the bark of an old tree and whispered, "I've never seen anything so strong." "You're stronger," he said quietly. She turned to him. "No, I'm not. You survived things that should have destroyed you. And yet, here you are. That's strength." She didn't reply. But for the first time, she believed he meant. In that night, Mira sat at the table holding a piece of wood. "I carved something," she said. Daniel raised an eyebrow. "May I see?" She showed him. It was simple, rough, but clearly a small flower. He took it carefully. "It's beautiful." She looked down. "It's broken in one place." "So are all flowers," he said. "But they still bloom." At bedtime, Daniel stopped near her cot. "I'll be gone tomorrow. Need supplies from town. Will you be okay alone for a few hours?" Mira nodded, then hesitated. "They won't find me, will they?" "No," he said firmly. "They'd have to get through. Me first." She gave a small nod, then whispered, "Daniel." "Yes?" "Thank you for not hurting me." His face softened. "You never deserved to be hurt." When he left the room, Mira lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Kindness, real kindness, was terrifying. because now she had something to lose. The snow began to melt. Spring came quietly, dripping from the trees and waking the silent earth. The world outside Daniel's cabin was changing, and so was Mira. But healing wasn't easy. Each morning, Mira woke before the sun. She sat by the window and stared into the trees. Her fingers traced the marks on her arms, old scars, some deep, some faded. They told her who she used to be, a slave, a thing, a tool, but every day in this house that belief shook. One morning, Daniel handed her a small mirror. She froze. "I don't look at myself," she whispered. "Why not?" he asked gently. "I don't want to see her." Daniel didn't push. He simply placed the mirror on the table and walked away. Later that day, she picked it up. For the first time in years, she saw her face, thin, tired, and marked. But then she looked deeper. Her eyes were not empty. There was fire in them now, not rage, not fear. Life. Daniel had begun teaching her to write. "Letters," he said, "are power. You can speak without speaking." Her hands shook as she held the pen. Her first word came slow and rough. "Mira." She stared at it for a long time. "That name," Daniel said, "is yours now. No one can take it from you." Mira nodded, her throat tight. Days turned to weeks. Daniel took her to the field behind the cabin. It had been dead during winter, but now it was soft and wet, ready for new life. "Help me plant these," he said, handing her small seeds. She knelt beside him, hands in the dirt. "You trust me with this?" she asked. He smiled. "I trust you with everything." She bit her lip and whispered, "Why?" "Because you've already shown me something more valuable than gold." "What?" "Resilience." One afternoon, they were working quietly in the garden when Mira dropped a heavy tool on her foot and cried out. Daniel ran to her. She backed away fast, hands up, shaking. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to. Please don't." He stopped, arms down. "Mira," he said calmly, "you're not in danger." Tears came to her eyes before she could stop them. I still think like a slave," she said. Daniel stepped forward slowly. "You're not broken. You're healing. That takes time." "But look at me," she said, showing her scarred hands. "Who would want this?" He gently reached for her hand and held it. "I do." That night she found something new on the table, a dress. It was simple, soft, made from old cloth, but it was clean and stitched by hand. "I made it for you," Daniel said. She stared at it. "Why?" "Because you've never had anything just yours." She hugged it to her chest. "No one's ever gifted me something without wanting something back." Daniel said nothing. That silence meant more than 1,000 promises. Later, she stood outside in the new dress, barefoot in the grass, and lifted her arms to the sky. The wind moved through her hair, and for the first time, she smiled. A real full smile. Daniel watched from the porch. He didn't speak. He just let her be free. That evening, she placed a small carving on his table. It was her. Not as she was, but how she wanted to be. Standing tall, holding a flower, a small smile carved on the face. Daniel looked at it carefully. "She looks strong." "She is," Mira whispered. "But she's scared." "Why?" "Because she finally has something good, and she's afraid it will be taken." He nodded. "Then she just needs someone to stand by her." Mira looked up. "Will you?" Daniel answered without a pause. "Always." But the stars outside held secrets, and something from Mira's past was moving in the dark, getting closer. It began with a footprint. Daniel noticed it first, pressed into the soft dirt behind the cabin. Large, heavy, not his, not Mira's. He crouched beside it and frowned. Someone's been here. Mira stepped out from the garden with a basket of herbs. She saw his face and froze. "What is it?" Daniel showed her the print. She dropped the basket. Her body stiffened. Her hands started to shake. "I know that tread," she whispered. "It's theirs." That night she didn't sleep. She sat near the fire, knees pulled tight to her chest, eyes locked on the window. Daniel stayed up with her. "Who are they?" he asked softly. Her voice was cold and distant. "The ones who first bought me. The ones who hurt me. Trained me. Broke me. I escaped them once, but they never forget." Daniel looked at the shadows beyond the door. "They won't get you again." She shook her head. "They always come back." 3 nights passed. Then it happened. Daniel was outside chopping wood when he heard the snap of a branch, too clean, too close. He turned and saw them. 3 figures, tall, armored, eyes hidden behind masks. One of them smiled cruelly. "You have something that belongs to us, human." Daniel stood his ground. "She belongs to no one." The man stepped closer. "She was marked, tagged, registered, a runaway product." "I paid for her," Daniel replied. 1 coin. That was no sale. That was trash disposal. Inside, Mira heard the voices. She froze in the kitchen. Her breath caught. She peeked out the window and saw them. Panic hit her chest like ice. She reached for the knife near the sink, hands trembling. She remembered the chains, the cold floor, the cage. The voice that whispered, "You're mine." She couldn't go back. She wouldn't. Outside, the masked leader pulled out a weapon. "Stand aside, human. You don't understand what she is." Daniel didn't flinch. "I know exactly who she is." And then a soft voice called from the door, "No." Mira stepped outside, barefoot in the dirt, dress flapping in the wind. Her legs were shaking, but her eyes were fire. "She is not yours," she said, her voice loud and clear. "She was never yours." The men laughed. "You were property." "I was a child," she screamed. And for the first time, she wasn't hiding. One of the men lunged forward, trying to grab her. Daniel moved faster. With a shout, he slammed the axe handle into the attacker's ribs. The man dropped. The others reached for their weapons. Mira didn't run. She grabbed a shovel and swung hard. The second attacker stumbled back, shocked. "You trained me," she growled, "but you never taught me to be free." The third raised his blaster, aimed at her. Daniel jumped in front of her. The shot fired, smoke filled the air, and when it cleared, Daniel was still standing. The weapon sparked, damaged by the cold and rain. Mira stared at him. "You shielded me." He turned his head slightly. "I told you. They'll have to go through me." Behind them, the attackers groaned on the ground. Mira picked up the fallen blaster. She pointed it at her former masters. "Tell the others," she said. "Tell them I am not their slave anymore." They ran, cowards now, vanishing into the trees where they once hunted. Back inside, Mira dropped the weapon and fell to her knees. Daniel rushed to her. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head. "No, but I was afraid I'd freeze again, that I'd beg, that I'd hide." "You didn't." "I fought." "Yes," Daniel said, pulling her into a hug. "Because you're not who you were." She leaned into him. "But part of her still lives in me." "That's okay," he whispered. "You're building someone new." That night, Mira stared at the fire again, but this time with pride in her eyes. Her past had found her, but it didn't break her. And Daniel, he didn't save her this time. He stood with her. The sky was clear the next morning. After weeks of cold gray, sunlight poured across the valley like gold. Trees shimmered with new green, and the field behind Daniel's cabin bloomed with tiny wildflowers. Mira stood barefoot in the grass, eyes closed, face tilted to the sun. She wasn't hiding anymore. Word had spread in the nearby village. 3. Slave hunters had returned, limping, bruised, and humiliated. They were chased off. One villager whispered, By a human and a girl he bought for a single coin. Impossible, said another. That girl, she was nothing. But rumors grew, and so did curiosity. It started with the baker. An old man with a bent back and white beard walked up the forest trail, holding a wrapped loaf. Is she here? He asked Daniel. Daniel nodded and stepped aside. Mira was inside, washing vegetables, humming softly. The baker stepped in slowly, eyes kind but unsure. I heard what you did. I brought bread. Mira stared at the bundle. For me? Yes. She hesitated. Why? The baker looked down. Because we were wrong about you. Later that week, a woman arrived. She was tall, wore dark gloves, and carried a small bundle of thread and buttons. I make clothes, she said. Not charity. Just if she wants something of her own. Mira touched the fabric like it was treasure. Thank you. The woman smiled. You remind me of my daughter. Mira blinked. Where is she? Gone. Long ago. But you have her fire. Soon others came too. A carpenter brought her a small wooden box. A farmer offered her seeds. A child gave her a drawing of a blue girl with a big smile and a flower in her hand. Mira touched the picture and whispered, She looks happy. Daniel looked over her shoulder. She is happy. In the evenings, Mira began to tell stories, not about pain or slavery, but dreams, wishes, the first time she touched a flower, the first warm night she slept without fear. Daniel built her a small table in the garden where she carved figures from wood, animals, trees, stars. People came to buy them, not out of pity, but because they were beautiful. One afternoon, Mira sat under a tree with a group of village children. They asked her questions. Were you really a slave? Did you fight them off? Is it true you once slept on rocks? Mira nodded. Yes, all true. Weren't you scared? She smiled softly. Every single day, but being scared doesn't mean you stop. A small girl asked, What made you brave? Mira looked toward the cabin where Daniel was hammering wood. A choice, she said. One man chose to see me. That gave me a chance to see myself. That night, Mira placed a carved figure on Daniel's table. It was a human man standing beside a small alien girl. But this time, the girl stood tall, holding his hand, yes, but with her own feet planted firm. He picked it up. This us? She smiled. This is who we became. Later, she asked quietly, Do you remember the day you bought me? Daniel nodded. You looked like you'd given up. I had, she whispered. But you didn't. You were worth it. Was I? She asked. Even when I didn't speak? When I flinched at every touch? When I couldn't smile? You were worth it, especially then, he said, because that was when you needed someone the most. Mira sat quietly watching the fire crackle. I used to think I had nothing, she said. No name, no value, no future. She turned toward him. But now, people come to me. Children laugh with me. I make things. I even dream when I sleep. Daniel smiled. You were always someone, Mira. They just didn't see it. She nodded. But you did. Outside, the stars blinked awake, and in a world that once ignored her, Mira now stood in the center of it. Not as property, not as a tool, not as a shadow, but as a person, a creator, a light. Spring became summer. The garden behind the cabin was now full, flowers blooming in soft colors, vegetables growing strong, and children running through the grass. Mira stood among them, her hair tied back, her hands covered in earth. She was no longer the girl from the slave market. She was someone else now. One day, as the sun dipped low, casting gold over the valley, Mira walked into Daniel's workshop with a small wooden box in her hands. He looked up, curious. What's this? She placed the box in front of him gently. Something I've been waiting to give you. Daniel opened it and froze. Inside was a single silver coin, the same kind he had paid for her that day in the market. Only now it was polished and clean. On one side, Mira had carved her name. On the other side, she had etched a single flower. Daniel picked it up slowly. "You kept it?" "I found it in your drawer weeks ago," she said softly. "I couldn't stop thinking about it." "I didn't want to forget," he said, "what they thought you were worth." She nodded. "And now? I want you to remember what I've become." That evening they sat outside together, watching the stars. Mira held the coin in her hand, turning it over and over. "They said I was worth nothing," she whispered. "That I was broken. That no one would want me." Daniel looked at her. They were wrong. She smiled, her voice strong now. "I know." She set the coin down between them. "But you gave one coin and changed everything. Not because you needed a servant or felt pity. You saw someone still breathing, still fighting. Someone you believed could become more." He nodded. "You didn't need saving, Mira. You needed a place to stand." She looked at him. "You gave me that." Weeks passed. Mira's carvings began appearing in every home across the village. One figure of a girl reaching toward the sky sat on the mayor's desk. Another, of two hands gently holding a flower, rested in the healer's hut. No one called her the slave girl anymore. She was Mira, the artist, the storyteller, the one who returned kindness even after drowning in cruelty. Then came the festival. It was the first one Mira attended freely. She wore a dress she made herself, stitched with vines and stars along the hem. As she stepped into the village square, all eyes turned, not in shock, not in judgment, but in respect. Children ran to her. Neighbors smiled. The music swelled, and at the center of it all stood Daniel waiting. He offered his hand. Not as a rescuer, as her equal, she took it. Later that night, under the lanterns and laughter, Mira stood on a small stage, holding a carved flower in her hand. She looked out at the crowd. "I was once sold for a single coin," she said, her voice steady. "But I was never worthless. I was unseen. That's different." She held up the carving. "This is what happens when someone sees you, when they choose love instead of power, respect instead of control." She looked down at Daniel. "He gave me back my voice. Now, I use it to lift others." She handed the carving to a small alien girl in the front row, another former slave. "You are not your chains," Mira whispered to her. "You are your choice." Back at the cabin that night, Mira placed the coin on the shelf. Not hidden, not forgotten. She turned to Daniel. "I used to think that coin was the measure of my value." He smiled. "What do you think now?" She stepped closer, eyes glowing, with quiet fire. "I think no coin could ever buy what we've built here. And in that little cabin on a quiet edge of a once cruel world, two people, one human, one alien, rewrote what worth truly meant, not in markets, not in money, but in how fiercely they chose to love and to heal together."